This is Richard Gaffney. I'm with OPTEX. I'm the National Sales Manager for Industrial Sensors. Recently, we've combined our vehicle detection group with our industrial door group to provide better solutions for our customers. We are now calling ourselves Smart Mobility Solutions, or SMS. I've been with OPTEX now almost 2 years. I've been in the industrial door business for a long time. I was with Overhead Door for several years, Dynaco, and also Cooks and Cornell. So it's a nice change to get into the sensor business. And also I'd like to introduce Connor Ackerman. He's our pre-sales and applications engineer. Connor, can you say hello and give a little description about yourself?
Hey, everybody. Like Richard said, my name's Connor Ackerman. I started off in the pedestrian door market as a technician, and then I've been with OPTEX for going on 4 years now. Started off in the tech support side of things, where one of the first sensors I started taking calls on was one of the sensors we're going to be going over today, which is the OVS01 GT. From there, I've moved from tech support into sales, and now this position working alongside Richard and our SMS division. So that's who I am.
All right. I guess you can go ahead and get started on the presentation. And if anybody has any questions during the presentation, feel free to put those in the Q&A box, and we will answer them as we go through each portion of the presentation.
All right, Richard. So we will be going over our 3 core products, and you'll see as we go throughout, there are some supplementary products in each section. We will be starting off with the OEM Explorer, as you can see here. Our OEM Explorer is our hybrid motion presence sensor. It's designed for industrial doors. This sensor has our industry-leading microwave technology that can ignore human traffic while also ignoring cross traffic and detecting the vehicles that we want to detect moving directly at the door. We have a pre-notification function if we wanted to hook this into any kind of beacon, light, or lighting system. And then we have our active infrared portion of the sensor, which provides safety not only at the threshold, but through the threshold if it's set to do so. This is a supplementary safety device, so it is not monitored, but it definitely is a very reliable secondary safety. Our blue zone technology is what allows us to look through the threshold, and we'll get into more of that as we go through this. If you guys will, please maximize your little video tab. Yeah, the media player, so we can, and I will push a video to you guys on the OEM Explorer.
Introducing the OPTEX OAM Explorer motion and presence sensor for the industrial door market. The OPTEX OAM Explorer combines industry-leading motion activation with advanced presence monitoring for increased safety. As a vehicle approaches the door, the system enters pre-notification mode, signified by a blinking orange indicator light. This mode allows traffic signals or other alerts to be activated and the doorway to be cleared. When the indicator light burns solid orange, the door is opening. As the vehicle moves further toward the open doorway, the sensor indicator light will glow solid red. This means it has entered the presence safety zone. With OPTEX's exclusive blue zone technology, indicated by the blinking red light, motion is detected even through the threshold and will not allow the door to close until the blue zone is safely cleared. Once cleared, the indicator light turns green, signifying that the door can now close. information, go to optexamerica.com. Thanks for watching.
So that was our OEM Explorer. In short, we're going to go over some of the key benefits of the Explorer now. So due to our unique cylinder design that we have 90 degrees of adjustability on this Explorer. And the two lenses are independently adjustable, if you can see there in the little picture to the left. The large portion on the left of the sensor is our active infrared zone. That's the portion we will move closer to the door to provide that safety right there at the face of the door. The smaller portion on the right, that is our microwave portion of the sensor. That's what we will be angling out away from the door to detect that oncoming traffic. And any kind of fine-tune adjustments such as sensitivities, the number of rows that you're going to use for the infrared, the width of the infrared, those kind of things, those will all be adjusted through our smartphone app, which is free to everyone. Let's see here. All right. Let's get into mounting height. The mounting height of this sensor is, we have a minimum mounting height of 6.7 feet to 19.8 feet. We've gone into applications where we've mounted the sensor up to 23 feet, no problem, in certain scenarios where that's been needed. The OEM Explorer can be used on many different doors, sectional doors, high speed doors, rolling grills, anywhere there is a overhead door, this sensor is pretty much a solution for your activation and supplemental safety. The wiring for the sensor, it comes with 32 foot 10 inches of cable, pretty much 33 feet of cable. It's got 8 wires, so three sets of those wires are for our 3 individual relay outputs, and then we have our 2 power wires. The connection on the cable is an IP67 connection. And the reason why we wanted the connection instead of it being hardwired to the sensor is to make the sensor more versatile as far as replacing. We're not, if the sensor were to get damaged or anything like that, we're not having to rerun all the cable or cut wire and splice wire. We can simply just unplug the sensor and plug it in. Also for fishing wire, one way or the other, you no longer have to fish your wire back through the wall with a sensor still attached to that wire and it's just dangling down. So we can fish that wire and then mount our sensor. So
also, I've had people ask before, can we splice the wire if they, because we only have 32 feet, can we splice if they need a longer wire? So yeah, you can splice it.
And just to touch on the gauge size, our wire is 22 gauge wire. All the individual wires are 22 gauge. So they're relatively small, as long as you're not jumping up to anything really above 18 gauge when you splice in, you should be fine. So we've really had no issues there. All right. This is where we get in our smartphone app. Like I said before, this is a free app. The way we protect this sensor, because it is free, the sensor itself is password protected. So you can change that password once you've installed the sensor, and you can have a set company password. That way, if any technician goes out there, he knows what your company's password is. But that keeps our end users from your end users from getting into the sensor and starting to play with things, and eliminating those unnecessary service calls. We have an installation mode on this sensor that can, what it what it does when that's turned on, it ignores the microwave zone and your second and third row of infrared and allows us to only have detection on that first row of infrared. So we know exactly where we're setting that. When you're looking at the sensor, you're not seeing all of these different lights flash when you're trying to adjust it. We have the area check, which is it's a walk test. You can visually look at the LEDs on the sensor to tell you where you're at. It would be a flashing orange if you're in the pre-notification, a solid orange for activation. A solid red means that you've entered the safety zone, and then a flashing red means that you're in the last row of safety. This is also visual through the smartphone app as well. You will have 3 areas inside the smartphone app, and it will show you whether it's in detection or non-detection whenever you're walk testing that area. The My Favorites function is a really neat feature. If we have a warehouse scenario where we just installed 10 doors and we've got 20 sensors, and it's pretty much the same install across the board. Once we program and fine-tune one sensor, we can click on this favorites function, download all the settings that we just did, and we can copy and paste, which is a very neat feature. It knocks out a lot of installation time. And then last but not least, the app does come in 9 different languages. So
can you go back to the My Favorites function? Talk about the sharing of the settings. You can email the settings.
Yes. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Richard. Inside the app, if you have a technician that is working with another tech, he can go into his drop-down menu and send a Excel file via email to the other technician that he's working with. That way they can be working on 2 different sides of the building and copy the same settings. So he can look through that Excel file and say, okay, I need my sensitivity here, I need the width here, this, that, and the other. All he has to do is go through and copy those settings. So that's a really neat feature, and it's also really nice for us troubleshooting on this. And if I myself am talking with a technician in the field and there's some sort of miscommunication, I can log into the sensor that I have here at my house and send him some preset settings to give him a good starting point if he's having some issues. So, and vice versa, if he's having some issues and I don't have a way to see what is on his screen, he can send me what he's done so far as well. So this is a really neat feature, not just for troubleshooting, but for sharing with other technicians.
Nice.
On our website, we have this visual guide for the OAM Explorer. The visual guide is really neat. It's super interactive. If you see the little green slide bar, you can actually adjust the angle of the infrared. And those spots that you see on the diagram, those will move towards the door or away from the door, depending on what angle you have that set to. Also, you can change the mounting height and you can change the width of the door so you can see what that pattern will look like. You can also turn off rows. You can knock that down from 3 rows to 2 rows or even to 1 row. And then you can also narrow those individual zones as well. You can see all that through the app. And it is to scale. Those little squares there are 1 by 1 squares. So you can see how wide that zone actually is at those different mounting heights. So earlier we talked about our cross-traffic cancellation function. This ignores, like we say, any kind of cross-traffic to help with energy saving costs. We're not going to be losing the heat or the cooling that we have inside of a building whenever those forklifts or trucks are just moving across the face of the door. This will only detect traffic moving directly at the door. This being said, if that forklift is coming from the left and makes a hard angle in, that forklift's going to have to come face head on with the door. He's going to have to come across and then turn straight into the door and approach the door directly. If he tries to make a hard turn, it's going to recognize him as cross traffic and not open. We have seen that as a concern, but the solution with these forklifts can turn pretty sharp. They just have to square up with the door and then make that turn. This is our active infrared pattern. So the active infrared pattern is a 1-to-1 ratio on height to width. So if you have a 15-foot tall door, the width of that pattern is going to be 15 feet wide. And that being said, if your door is wider than it is tall, if it's 15 feet wide and only 12 feet tall, then we can mount, as long as there's headroom, we can go up to 15 feet on our mounting height to cover the width of that door. That being said, if we have a 20-foot wide door and it's only 10 feet tall or 12 feet tall, we might need 2 sensors to cover that area as well. And if we have to have 2 sensors, that's not an issue on our end with any kind of crosstalking, because we have 4 different frequencies. So this is where we get into our door cancel function, which is also our blue zone. If you get that sailing effect on any of those rubber doors or anything like that, we can adjust that blue zone to slightly outside of the threshold. So when that sailing effect happens, that first row will ignore that door. The way this works is the first row of infrared will be turned on when the sensor is triggered initially, and the door will go up. As soon as a person or a vehicle passes completely through all of the zones of the sensor, that first row will now be ignored by the sensor and allow that door to come down. You can also set this on a timer up to 10 seconds to give it a 10-second delay before it shuts off. So it's on 1 second increments up to 10 seconds, or it can be immediately after the sensor goes into standby. Here's where we get in our pre-notification function of the sensor. This is adjusted through the microwave as well. The microwave angle also adjusts your microwave pre-notification angle as well. The pre-notification angle, the pre-notification zone will always extend beyond the microwave area. That is to trigger any kind of lights or warning systems or anything like that. This portion of the sensor can also be set to its own independent relay or auxiliary relay. That way we can, with the auxiliary relay, we can delay the door opening while still giving the alert to the other side of the opening. Here's our sectional mount. This is for your vertical lift doors or your sectional doors. What we did is we fabricated 2 mounts that will go on either side of the door, and you will either take a spreader bar or an angle iron or anything like that and run that along, or run that between the 2 mounts. And that way we can still center the sensor on the door and provide that full safety pattern. That way we're not angling we're not putting the sensor off to the side of the door and trying to shoot it in. And you get all kind of issues with, especially with when you get cross traffic and human traffic, and then the safety zone is no longer centered either. Here's another look at that sectional mount. So we have also partnered with a company called Built. Built is it's an installation help is what it is. Essentially, Built is a free app that you or your technicians can download on their phone, and it goes step by step on the installation of the sensor. It's a really neat feature. Weber Grills uses it, Little Tykes for, kids' toys and all kind of things. We thought that this would be necessary for technicians to use while they're in the field. If they get stuck on a step and don't quite understand how to install this in this particular scenario, they can use this. It'll show a ceiling mount option. It'll show an overhead mount option, things like that. Here's where we're going to get into the link. This is one of the complementary products specifically to the OAM Explorer. This is a Bluetooth relay. So let's say you have a light or a beacon on the other side of the door, and you don't want to have to necessarily fish wire the same wire that's going to go from the sensor to your operator. Now you're also having to run more wire to the other side of your door to trigger that light or siren or whatever it is. The OEM Explorer can do this wirelessly through the link. We can use this for any kind of other applications as well, such as counting activation cycles. We can hook that in as well wirelessly while still triggering the door with the sensor. This Bluetooth relay can be set to mimic any one of the three outputs, whether that is our activation output, supplemental safety output, or the auxiliary output. And this is also selectable between normally open and normally closed. So showing here all the different scenarios where the link can be useful as well. Is warehouse traffic. Showing a little diagram here on warehouse traffic. If the forklift approaches from the right to the left, they trigger the door to open, and we could still have somebody walking up there. Well, you're gonna have the link with the light on the opposite side of the wall to alert the person if that was the case, and we can let someone know that there's a forklift coming through that door to get out of the way, so that we can eliminate those lost time work accidents. We adjust the link through the Explorer. So the only way to adjust the outputs or paralink is to use the Explorer app. There's no way to directly connect just to the link. This eliminates anyone from being able to adjust the link settings as well. Each Explorer can have up to 5 links paired to it. So essentially, if you're in a warehouse scenario and you needed 8 relay outputs, you would get the 3 that come on the sensor itself that are independently adjustable, as well as 5 Bluetooth link units. So that makes this sensor very, very versatile and what we can accomplish. And here's you can find our documents on our website, such as wiring diagrams and things of that nature. Let's get into a couple of questions here that we have.
Yeah, it's great. We've gotten several questions. We've got one here. How is the link powered?
Yeah. Okay. So the link is powered through with 12 to 24 DC power. So we would have to have power to our lighting system. We can use the same power source that your lighting system's on. So it can be a closed circuit system. It doesn't have to be connected to anything outside of there. As long as you can get power to that lighting system, you can also get power to that link. So if it's on an opposite wall from your door and your sensor, we can run off that 12 to 24 AC or DC power.
Okay, and then does Blue Zone work with a door with a longer closing time than 10 seconds?
Yeah, so good question. With a door with a longer closing time than 10 seconds, if we had a sensor on both sides of the door, our solution to that, the is typically if we had one on both sides of the door, it's theoretically impossible for you to get to row 1 without crossing through rows 2 or row 3. And if we have one sensor on each side of the door, you also don't have to wire in the activation function. So if you only want activation from one side of your door, but to provide safety through both sides, you can have one on the interior, one on the exterior. And if anybody tries to approach from the outside of the door or the inside of the door, you have your row 2 and row 3 that they have to cross through on both sides. And when they do that, they will turn the blue zone back on. And so it will provide you full safety all the way through the door. That person can't get to row 1 without going through the row 2 or row 3. I hope that answers your question. I know that we can't extend that beyond 10 seconds. However, if that closing timer is 15 seconds and after 10 seconds that blue zone shuts off, that door starts to come down and the blue zone's off, somebody starts to approach, that door is still going to go back up because it's going to hit row 2 or row 3 first, being those are the rows furthest away from the door, and then row 1 will be on. That being said, if row 2 or row 3 are turned off because we have that capability to knock it down to one row of infrared, the blue zone there's no blue zone capability because we have to have one row active all the time. I hope that answers your question there.
Right. And here's another one. How does standing water, puddles, snow affect the operation of the sensor?
Yeah, short answer is it doesn't. We have 3 different immunity settings and then 9 different sensitivity settings to help overcome those environmental factors. We actually helped a customer of ours win the firehouse contract for the city that he services their firehouse doors over, because our competitor's product was having issues with this exact scenario. The fire trucks would pull out of the warehouse, or pull out of the fire station, I should say, and the doors would be stuck open because there was heavy rain that day or something like that, and some water blew in the door, and they would just stay stuck open. Once he replaced those sensors with the OAM Explorer, he has not had that issue, and was able to actually win the contract for all the city firehouses through that. So,
okay. And then, we got some great questions. Is the Explorer weather rated, and how does it perform in cold and warm climates?
Yeah, so the sensor is rated to -30 Fahrenheit, and it is IP65 and NEMA 4X rated, while the quick disconnect plug is IP67. We have no issues with being outside in the elements. We've installed quite a few in Chicago. We have a couple installed in Canada now, and have had no negative feedback from those installs in these outdoor scenarios.
All right. Here's another question. OPTEX, is OPTEX in commercial door specifications?
I'll let you answer that one, Richard.
Okay. Yeah, we are. We're actually in master spec. We have a section in there strictly for optical sensors. So you'll be able to find it on master spec. Any architect can go in there and take a look at that. We can also help people if you need help writing a spec. We can help you. We can download that information for you and put that in a document that you guys can have. So yeah, we can definitely help with those. I got a couple more questions. These are great. Can it be wired to most operators?
Yeah. We can wire into pretty much any operator out there. I have yet to find one that we can't integrate into. We are normally open, normally closed, dry contact outputs. Those are selectable through the app. The only thing is with our supplemental safety feature that we are supplemental safety, being that it's not monitored. We would have to wire into a non-monitored safety portion of the sensor. And then we have a number of drawings on our website as well for going anywhere from lighting systems to overhead door, their 3-phase and single-phase controls, Rytec, Horman. I have drawings for all of those and how we integrate into those high-speed door applications.
Good. Okay, here's another one. Do you have to use the present safety? Can you turn one off and use just one, or do you have to have them all?
Yeah. So if you are simply replacing an activation device on a door, if this has some sort of closed loop on it, and we are just needing this sensor for activation, there's no real need for added safeties. We already have light curtain and things like that are pre-existing on the door. It's as simple as not wiring that portion of the sensor in. All we would do is use 4 wires. We'd use our 2 power wires, and then we would use our activation output, and that would be it.
Okay. And the last question, you actually answered this one already, but the mounting location, can it be mounted to the side? I think you already answered.
We touched on that a little bit when we went over the S mount. And the reason for the S mount is because we can't be mounted to the side. With our active infrared zone to provide that full safety across the path of the door, we need to be centered on that door. Also, we with the cross traffic cancellation function, whenever you start mounting off to the side of the door and angling that in, you do run into a few issues with the cross traffic when vehicles try to approach it head on. Approach the door head on. They end up coming almost across the face of the sensor, and sometimes could be ignored. All right, I think that's it as far as Explorer questions. We're going to move on to the OVS-01 GT. So this sensor is super versatile. It provides vehicle activation and present safety for vehicles only. Unlike the Explorer, this does not. We wouldn't recommend this as a supplemental pedestrian safety device. So, like I said before, we can detect the presence of stationary or moving vehicles through the field of view. We have the ability to ignore most human traffic, and the big perk here is no more saw cutting concrete to install. We mount a post over to the side of the driveway on the curb or whatever you have there, and it's 4 wires to the back of the sensor and 4 screws onto the post. The most you'll have to do if you're mounting further away from the operator is bury a wire and pour a small concrete pad for that base to sit on. Outside of that, it's a very, very quick install. So this saves you a lot of money in just labor costs. If you're a smaller company out there and you have to rent your concrete saw every time you need to cut a new loop in, then you no longer have to do that with this. We have multiple different post sizes. Here, as you can see, the quick mounting and wiring. It's only 4 wires to the sensors, 2 power wires, and then your 2 output wires. We can be used in down loops, on barrier arms, free exit, shadow loops, and security gates or parking structures, any number of things like that. The sensor needs to be mounted between 19 and 21 inches off the ground. If you can get it right at 20 inches, that is ideal scenario. And if you're mounting to a barrier arm housing, making sure that the top of that sensor sits at least 12 inches underneath the barrier arm if it is directly there. We can detect both small and large vehicles. Our pattern is customizable up to 18 feet. We have our ultrasonic burst, which is to help detect objects in close proximity to the sensor, being that the microwave zone is so small that close to the sensor. And then when you get beyond that, our microwave would take over and is adjustable from increments there on out. So these are a couple of different applications. We also have a sister sensor to this called the OVS01CC that has a extended range and can detect vehicles moving a tad faster, things like that. That is designed for car counting and has two relay outputs instead of the single relay output. The OVS01GT applications, this is a copy of the spec sheet right here, showing what all, the current draw and things of that nature. All right, so for the GT applications, for security gate, we get into scenarios where people are throwing things over the gate to trigger the ground loop on the free exit loop on the opposite side, and opening that gate. We've come into those situations in quite a few times. And what we've done in that situation is we'll actually take two sensors and we'll mount one where that first sensor is on the inside, and then we'll mount another one about 6 feet back, and we'll wire those in series to overcome that. That way only a car can cross both paths at the same time. Anything you want to add there, Richard?
No, that was good. For the security, it's very inexpensive to be able to do this with just two sensors. So it's not a lot of money to put in two sensors. So that helps quite a bit.
Yep. So the OVS01CC, this is for car counting. We can go into a wide variety of applications, parking structures and things like that. Again, you're not having to cut the ground loops. That's the big thing. You'll see this over and over and over again about the not cutting ground loops. If you were to need to mount this to a wall, this sensor comes with a single gang box adapter. That way you can mount a single gang box to a wall. It comes with a faceplate, and you can push that wire through a piece of conduit out the side of it. That way you're not having to cut through a wall or anything like that, where we don't have a place to mount a post.
One thing nice about you hit on that fact that we don't have to cut loops. If you have damaged loops and you can't get in there to cut them out and replace them, this is a great fix for that.
Yeah, this is a great fix for that. And then you get into your parking structures where you get into post-tension concrete, and you don't want to even look at loops as an option because of that post-tension concrete. The OVS01 GT or even the Explorer in some scenarios, because we have that human cancellation function, can be used there. On our website, we have a number of different gate layouts with some preset settings and things like that. If you go to optex-vs.com, you can see how we recommend to mount a sensor for your free exit, how to mount a sensor for shadow loop, how to mount a sensor for a barrier arm. All of these different things are right there on our website as a tool for you guys. And if you look right here, where I'm just pointing my clicker to, we have the two different size posts there. The two different size posts, one is for your curb mount, one is for your non-curb mount, and that's to achieve that 20-inch mounting height. And there's our website for the OVS.
All right, I have a couple of questions that came through. There's one that you answered about tricking this sensor to open. That was good. The other question was, how do you pick up different kinds of trailers, trucks and trailers, coming through a gate?
Yeah, so we've accomplished this task by stacking two sensors on top of each other, one at the recommended mounting height of 20 inches and another one above that between 30 and 40 inches. That way, if we're using this as a closed loop on a barrier arm, let's say we have tractor trailer traffic moving through, a standard loop has issues detecting that trailer because it sits so high. And we would run into the same issue if we just used a single sensor at 20 inches. We would shoot underneath that trailer. That top sensor will be able to detect that trailer accurately. And that way we're not allowing that barrier arm to close on the, we're not allowing that barrier arm to close on the trailer.
Last question for the OVS was, any changes or new technology coming out for the OVS?
Yeah, so we are in the works right now of a new OVS 01 GT. It is going to be AC and DC powered as opposed to just DC powered like the current one is. It's going to have two individual relay outputs with an extended range as well. Our current OVS 01 GT is an 18 foot maximum range. And currently with this version, if you had a lane that was wider than 18 feet, we can mount another one across the driveway to cover that range. That will give you up to 36 feet of detection. And because those are independently adjustable, let's say you had a 25 foot, lane, you can adjust those so that they're not hitting the other sensor or anything like that.
That's it. That was it for the OVS. Thanks for those questions.
I see we've got another one here. Does OPTEX have any factory training or field training? And the answer, the short answer is we don't have specific dates set up where we invite people to come in or anything like that. But if you needed training in the field on a large project, or you guys wanted training for your technicians or anything like that, so they can familiarize themselves with our product, we definitely will do that. The last thing we want to do is introduce you guys to a new product and then tell your technicians good luck. That's the last thing we want to do, and that's why we have all these different field application tools, such as the wiring diagrams and the layouts for the OVS 01 GT and things of that nature. That way we're providing everything we can to that technician so he can be successful in the field. And if that means that we need to be out there and help train you guys, then we can provide that as well. We'll be happy to. Alrighty, okay. On to the OVS 50 TNR. This is our dual through beam photo eye. This is specifically for gates. This does meet the UL 325 compliance for automatic gates. The big perk of this sensor is that we are using glass optics. We're using dual glass optics that have been proven time and time again. This is a derivative of one of our security beams, which was the 100 TNR. We make, on our security side, we make different kinds of perimeter detection devices so that when people jump fences or anything like that, and these dual glass optics have proven to be the answer, time and time again through your sun, your fog, your rain, and car colors, because it's not reflective, because it requires an emitter and a receiver. There's no issue with the car colors or reflective materials or anything like that. The sensor itself will operate with up to 80% of the beams covered. So more than 80% of both beams have to be covered for this sensor to go into detection. Another big perk of this sensor is that the emitter is battery powered. So it's completely wireless. So the emitter being battery powered, it's got an 8-year battery life. It comes with 2 lithium batteries with the sensor itself, and is UL 325 compliant. There are a couple of different ways in which we can align the sensor. We have a sniper viewfinder on the sensor. We also have an LED that will tell you how good the signal is from the emitter to the receiver. And then there's also a portion that I really like in those bright sunshiny days where you can't see anything. It has a spot for you to actually put 2 meter leads, and you would set your meter to DC voltage, and whatever voltage it would give off, you would know if it's between this and this, it's you need to realign it. If it's between the next setting up, you've got a good signal or a great signal, this, that, and the other. So that the 3 different ways to align that sensor come in super handy. As you can see, it is a rather large product. But that being said, it solves a lot of it solves a lot of problems and provides solutions to those scenarios where you just can't seem to win no matter what. You've got a reflective photo eye, and it fails time and time again. This solves 99% of those issues. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. One came through. Can the 50 TNR work with both 10K and 8.2K resistance operator platforms?
Yeah, so we do have a version that has that capability. Those different operators out there, such as high security, that require different resistances for their monitoring inputs, we can accommodate those.
Okay. All right. If anybody has any questions later on, you could submit the questions and we'll be happy to answer them later. And if you have any need or want a demo, we can certainly provide that. Just let us know. I do want to thank everyone for their time, and I hope you have a great day.